Hi, and welcome to Boy vs. Girl. I'm Felix, and this week we are going to be doing the natural makeup look or the no makeup challenge or whatever you happen to be calling it this week. So because I feel like this is much more effective when you do a whole face rather than half and half, I'm going to spend this week doing a boy face, and then next week I'll do a girl face. Now because I feel like there's so many tutorials about how to do it or seeing people do it for a female face, I figured let's start with the boy face, and I'm probably going to spend a little more time on that than I would doing the girl face just for equal time. So, a couple of things to begin with. One is that I use a different foundation depending on what face I'm doing. That's something to consider. Think about your texture that you want. Think about the color that you want. A masculine look is probably going to be slightly darker, or at least not as evenly matte and beautiful all over. Now, if that's what you want to do, feel free, that's fine. What I'm going for here is something that looks as close to quote-unquote natural, whatever that means, as possible. So let's get started. I will link all of the products, of course, that I'm using below. First off, I am going to start with a primer, and I use the Scandinavia Makeup Primer Spray. So this is really good if you have super sensitive skin that does not like anything. Almost nothing on your face. It's essentially cornstarch, water, some various like natural bark extracts and things like that. But essentially, you aren't having to put any silicone or any oils or anything like that on your face. So it dries down very quickly, very almost like literally nothing is on your face. The only way you can feel that it's there is that the skin is almost just a little, feels a little smoother almost. Now, while that's drying, let me just talk about the brushes I am going to use because I want to try to keep this as simple as possible. So for foundation, I always use the Real Techniques Expert Face Brush. You can see that. It does a really great job of just, you can contour with it, you can do whatever. So for contour, I actually use a combination of things, both the Real Techniques brush and then the Aesthetica C15. It's a contour brush, but it's fluffy enough that you can put on powder in a way that doesn't look so bold like you put a stripe on. For blush and so forth, I have the Shany 4. It's just whatever. It's a brush. It just has a nice puffy kind of set of bristles here that does a really light application of blush. For a small blending and stuff like that, I have the Morphe E46, which is a tapered little blending brush, which I really like. You can do so much with it. For the eyeshadow, I am going to be using the Luxie 227T, which actually it came in one of the I believe in my BoxyCharm box recently. It was a little set of 4, and these are really great. It's also small, you don't have to do. The only downside is that it's pink, but you know, whatever. And then for eyebrows, I am going to be using the Morphe E40, which is a little fan brush. Now, sometimes if I'm going to do a more complex face, I will use some different kinds of brushes. But for the sake of simplicity, I just want to say that everything I'm doing here today can be done with 5 brushes, maybe less. Alright, so let's get started. The first product I'm going to be using is the Boots No. 7 Airbrush Away Foundation. Now, I don't use this on a regular basis simply because it can be a little oily feeling, and again, my skin is a little sensitive, so it has some issues sometimes. But they did a really, 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 really good job of skin matching with this. It was electronic matching, and it does go on super light. So that's what I'm going to do first, is I'm going to just brush on, just dipping just a tiny little bit of it in there and brushing it on. Remember to brush down if you don't want to emphasize facial hairs. So you can do this a couple ways. You can kind of dab it on and then just brush it out, or you can dip the brush in it, whatever kind of floats your boat. I actually find it uses less product to just dab it on and then brush it out. And the thing again, the reason I keep this foundation around, even though it's not maybe my most favorite formula, is because you can see how absolutely natural and light it looks. It doesn't even look like I have foundation on at all. So when you do this though, make sure we aren't going to be using a lot of concealer or anything, because this is a natural look obviously. So make sure that you get under your eyes, over your eyes, forehead, brush up, especially if you're a cisgendered person or assigned male at birth kind of person. Make sure you get up into your hairline if the hair is short, so that you don't have a sudden change of texture and tone and color. And down, same thing onto the neck. And there is our foundation. Really quick, really easy. Now this does not even require powder. In fact, I don't powder on it when I'm doing this because it just then ruins kind of the nice natural look. As you can see, you can see some of the color of my skin through. It just evens it out a little bit. This is not a full coverage. This is barely even a light coverage. But if you are a female person looking to go more masculine, or if you're masculine who doesn't want a really made up look, this is great. This is probably not going to work so much if you're wanting to do a full male to female look or a kind of a drag queen kind of thing either. It's just not thick enough, heavy enough, or whatever, but it is a beautiful skin match, and it leaves you looking like you just are flawlessly beautiful but natural. Insofar as that we're all flawlessly beautiful and natural. One thing I am going to do as well for this, because as I mentioned before, even though the men in my family have very full lips and the women not so much, when I'm masculinizing my face, I want to kind of decrease how full my mouth looks and kind of remove just a little of the color. So I just put a little, brush that down over there so that the lines of my lips are not quite so withdrawn out. Alright, so now that we have our foundation on, let's do a little contour. Now again, normally I would put down a powder on this first, but because this is such a smooth dry finish, I don't feel the need. Now for this, I'm going to take the Aesthetica, again, C15. This is Makeup, is it Makeup Geek or Makeup Forever? I can never remember. Yes, MakeupGeek.com Breakup Cool Porcelain Contour Powder. This is my favorite thing ever. It's great for neutral undertones. So I'm just going to do just a little bit as I normally do here. Powder, powder, powder. And just draw kind of that square angular line. Now I am going to use a little powder to go over the top of this to make it look a little more natural. But for right now, natural is not the goal. Now I'm going to take this, the Real Techniques brush. It may still have a little bit of foundation on it, and if so, that's even better. It gets it in. And I'm going to buff it out just a tiny, tiny bit. Let's see here. You can also actually use the Morphe E15 to do this too. E46, I'm sorry, E46 to do this too. It does a really nice job of just putting a tiny amount. Well, how I do it just kind of really depends on the day, how I'm feeling, etc. I'm not going to put a whole lot on because, again, we're just doing the super natural look. But once we have a little on there, you can see that gives us a little definition to the face. Now, I am going to just define my jaw just a tiny bit more, just a tiny little brush down here. Not a lot, so I'm not doing like a super like sharp jawline or anything. For dudes who do have facial hair or whatever, one of the things Wayne Goss talks about a lot, shout out to him, he's using a little like blackening for the beard to try to, it actually contours the jawline a little bit, so you could put just a little color there, and that gives you a more shapely jaw. And again, there, how I want, you know, just thinking about how I want to define my face. So like there's little places here where my mother's side of the face comes out a little bit more, so it gives me a more rectangular look, and I kind of just want to minimize that just insofar as possible. Yeah, not a huge amount though. I'm also not going to do like a big like nose contour or anything. I'm just gonna take a tiny little bit here on my finger. In fact, I use my fingers to do a lot of this because it's just a little, when you just need a tiny little bit, and then you just want to go back and soften it just a little bit. You don't need to do that much. Just now, let's brush that out, brush that out. Okay. And in this case, the only thing I'm using the contouring with is just to kind of make my face look a little bit more masculine. This is not to like super contour the face because we are trying to look natural insofar as that is possible. And instead of any kind of like heavy highlight, I'm just going to take a tiny bit. Once I have the powder there, the contour powder on, I'm just going to do just a little there. I know this is normally the back way around, but I kind of like to see where my contour is and then blend the highlight down into that so that we have a little bit more control over what it looks like. Same thing, so there we go. We don't have a lot going on, but it does give the face just enough dimension and shape that you don't look quite like Shaun of the Dead. Now, instead of using a normal setting powder for this, what I do is, this is the Physician Formula face powder, mineral face powder in translucent light. So I just go back over this and put just a tiny little dab on the brush just to take the shine down and take some of the sense of like I have powder contour on my face, and it just evens that out a little bit so that it just looks like what you have on is almost just a little shadow, a little darkening of the skin. Very fancy. Alrighty, so now that we have that done, that is generally like the base of the face. I will actually put a tiny bit of highlight powder on. So just taking, so this is the LA Girl Strobe Lights powder. I've used this multiple times previously. So I'm just going to take it and rub it there, but then I'm going to go back with a brush and blend it out. Now normally, no, you wouldn't do this with highlight powder, but when we're wanting a little more of a natural look and we don't want to look like we just came in from, you know, the glitter factory, brushing it out and blending it in kind of actually helps a lot. So we're just going to put that there on the tips of the cheekbones, just a tiny little bit, and again, buff it out, buff it out. There is one more brush we are going to use. So this is the Morphe Y21. I've talked about this before. This is the stiff eyebrow brush. So since we are doing a really natural look, I'm going to just spoolie up the hair. This is what came with the kit, by the way. This is the thing I couldn't find before. It's on one end, the spoolie on the other. Anyway, so I got it up there. So now, instead of like doing a really, really intense eyebrow, I'm just going to take a little powder and start filling in. Remember that we're going to go a little straight across rather than pushing into the arch. Just a little fill in, not a lot, just the slightly darker than normal, and then go back with the actual lighter color. Again, now I use the brush like this to push the powder up. This way it doesn't actually look like you have powder on there in those edges. Now over here I am going to just fill in a little bit more so that my eyebrows are a little more thicker looking. But the bigger deal is just always that pushing up, fading out, pushing up, fading out. Now once I have that on, I'm going to take the wax in this kit. Again, this is the Aesthetica eyebrow contour kit that I always use. And now I'm going to take a little on this little brush that came with it, and I'm going to brush the hair up to hold it in to place, unless it looks like I have hair all in one place. So voila, there we have one super natural looking, plucked but natural looking. So same thing on this side, we're just gonna fill it in. So for me, by combing it up, it makes it look like my hair covers more space, and so that then the powder I've put on it doesn't look so fake. So this is just a very natural curve and arch, not a lot of like dramatic contour or anything, but it works. So now that leaves just pretty much, well, three things. One, blush, because I completely forgot blush, but here we are. So this is the NYX ombre brush in kind of this sunset orangey. I have a hard time finding a blush that looks really good on me, so this is kind of what it is right now. So I dip it just in kind of the lighter little bit, and just a tiny little brush in that direction. Not enough to like really do anything, just a little over the bridge of the nose, a little more that direction. Sometimes I'll even take a little more and put it back up here at the edge, the darker color up here at the edge of the contour, just to give it a little color and a little life. So it's not pink, it's more like of a coral color. So that's the blush. I really should have put that back several steps ago, but here we are. So that leaves eyes and lips. Let's do eyes first. So just because I like to try to do some of these things as cheaply as possible, so that if you don't have to pick up things from Sephora or whatever to be able to afford it. This is the 24 Rose Gold palette by Beauty Treats that I got from Hush, shophush.com for literally like $5. It was on sale. Now at first, again, I was kind of skeptical about this because I've gotten some weird reviews and whatnot, but the more I've used it, the more I genuinely like it. It is not bold, that is a thing, but when we're doing supernatural looks, especially for male looks, this is amazing. There's several colors here. So I'm gonna use a selection of colors, mostly the white, the peachy color here, the ashy light brown, some of the darker brown, and then I may use one of the this is the kind of shimmery brown. So I'm going to start with the white. And now I've said, before, we don't want to do a super highlight to make if you're masculinizing your face. That said, for me, I happen to have kind of really hooded, deep set eyes. So just a little light color, not a lot, it's not huge. And I don't put shimmer on for my masculine face. Just a little white to delineate the line of the eyebrow and give that just a little shape. As you can see, it's not a lot, but it does give you a little more definition. Now I'm going to take the peach color, and just go completely over the eye itself. And once you've got that layer down, that's kind of your blending color. So now I'm going to use that light ashy brown to go into the crease. Start darkening that just a little bit. Now you will probably need to find your own shades to work with your own skin, but I have very neutral colored skin, and this particular palette works amazingly well for this. So you start to build it up. Like I said, it's not super intense, but it's perfect for these purposes. You can start to see there's a little shadow in there, and I'm going to do just a little bit more. This really works well as a transition shade. Now I am going to use this also to contour right here by my nose. Kind of give the bridge of my nose a lot of definition, starting right there at the tip of the eyebrow, filling in just a little darker. As you can see, that makes a little shadow there, it makes it a stronger nose look stronger there, but the color is not so dense that it looks, again, like I have a lot of makeup on. Now once I have the the transition shade, I'm going to use the darker brown to then start right here at the corner and just in just a little bit. Just a little bit into the crease, so you can see just a little shadow there. Same thing here, just a little. Again, you should have enough of the transition shade that this works in and doesn't look very dark. And if you need to, you can take a little bit more of the transition shade, go back and work in there. Just a little more into that corner. So now, as you can see, let me just give you see if you can. It's fairly subtle, but now all of a sudden it's a little darker, it's a little more complex. It makes my eyes kind of pop a little bit. Now I am going to take that shiny sort of shimmer. It's not a lot of shimmer, it's just a little, but it is very nude colored for me, and I am going to put that right here on the center and inside of my eyelid. Let me see if you can get up close to see just a little home. It's not a lot, it's just, and it's not a huge amount of shimmer. It's just enough to bring color and light there, so that when I am looking at this, it just looks like my eyes have a lot of dimension. Now you can take that brush that we used to do the eyebrows and dip it in kind of that slightly darker shade and use it just to here, just to rub in just a little bit above, just to give it a little sense of not so much eyeliner, but to outline. You always want this to look super, super natural. Especially, so if you're a dude, this works particularly well. Find a color that's just a couple shades darker than your skin and closer to your eyelash color, and then just brush it in right there, just to define that just a little bit more. And then it actually makes it look like your lashes are a little thicker without actually making them look like curly girl lashes. I'll do just a tiny bit more. I'm realizing that this lighting doesn't help completely to see these kind of shades. When you look at it off camera in kind of a more natural lighting, you can see a little more of the differentiation, whereas the camera lighting tends to kind of wash it out just a little bit. Even so, you start to see. So that's like the eye look. Up close you can see there's just a little bit of kind of a deepening here, a light there. You can even take a little bit of that shimmer if you want, and if you want to be really bold, the brown shimmer, because it's not white, not going to stand out, and then just put that there at the brow bone, kind of brushing into that area there. But just make sure you don't brush it too much into the hair. So that's the eyeshadow look. Now, for the eyelashes themselves, so this is a harder conundrum, and I've been working on this a lot. So there's multiple options you can do. One of the things I've seen recommended and that I've tried is to take like a clear mascara and a brown mascara, mix some of them together so that you get a little bit here, and then you can just use it. This works really great for cis dude faces and eyes, because usually the eyelashes aren't quite so long or whatever, and you can just really put it on to separate. But if you have a more feminine face and you don't want to kind of highlight that, then it starts to get a little more problematic, because it does look, it emphasizes what's already there. You can use just the plain brown, and I actually have a couple of brown mascaras, including this. I'm going to be talking about mascara products in another little episode here. But what I've actually been using a lot lately is the Besame Cake Mascara in brown. Now this stuff, it comes as a little cake. You have to use water to kind of make it do a thing. You gotta just get the brush. So for this, I'm using the Morphe, again, E40. Get a little water on the brush, put it on the product, work it in until you have a thick enough kind of liquid to use. And you don't want it to be too runny. So I've got actually a little more than I need here. I'm going to take the fan brush then, and I'm going to just very gently brush some of it on. So I'm working it in there at the level of the lash root, then out. The fan brush helps keep it from getting too like mascara clumpy. Just be careful because you can spatter the liquid everywhere, and that's not what you want. Now once it dries, I may go back and actually separate that out a little bit more. So those are the eyelashes. Now that leaves us with lips. So as you can see, this is does not look like I have a lot of makeup on. So then the question then becomes, how do I do a lip that falls into that? So there are several ways to do that. What I am going to do for this is take a Tarte liquid lipstick in nude, and I'm not going to put it on heavily or anything like that. What I'm going to just do is brush on a tiny, tiny, tiny light little coat in the center of my lips. So just a tiny, and then start to, like you, not enough. It looks like, oh, I've painted my lips on. You can use your finger to smooth it down as well. You can just pat a little. Patting works better than kind of brushing on, because then brushing on gives it kind of look. So now this is kind of like the base color. Once it dries down, that's going to be kind of set. Now that's a lot, even though up close, you know, it's not a heavy coat. So what we can then do to kind of bring that back and use a little less is you can take either a little of this powder and kind of dab around the edges just to soften a bit of that, and so it doesn't look quite so brushed in. Same thing, so there it's nice and evened out. It's not quite so bright. And that looks much, much more like a natural lip. Now you can also use something like chapstick or something like a light colored lipstick on top of that, just to give just a tiny little shine in the middle, more like kind of a natural lip. But for me, this is like a super, super, super no makeup at all kind of look. So I don't want the shine on there. And here we go. This is our natural, no makeup boy face. There you have it. So thank you for joining me this week. Next week we will be doing the natural or no makeup girl challenge, which is going to be a little more on the makeup side because that's just how that rolls. If you have questions, comments, I'd love to hear from you. Remember to subscribe and tell your friends about the channel. All the products that I used today will be linked down below. Just remember, some of the links may be affiliate links, so if you feel like purchasing it to support the channel, that would be great. Thank you. Bye-bye.